Good evening, everyone. This is Brandon with Archie Cinema doing my next review here. Today, I'm going to be reviewing a documentary I actually watched last year, December 31st of last year. I'm just getting around to the review now, called Opryland, USA, A Circle Broken, directed by Brandon Vestal. I was able to view this documentary at the Belcourt Theater, which is celebrating their 100 years in business. This documentary talks about the historic Opryland theme park, which opened in 1972, the origins of why it was built, its cultural significance, and ultimately its closing and the circumstances as to why it closed in 1997. So I'm going to be getting to that and more right after this. All right, Opryland USA is Circle Broken. Fantastic documentary talking about Opryland theme park. For those of you that have never heard of Opryland, if I can explain it to you, it's kind of like a Six Flags. They had roller coasters, they had water rides. The thing that made it a little bit different was Opryland focused a lot on music. They had dancers and vocalists. I get to that a little bit later, but that's what made it unique. For those of you that grew up in Tennessee or remember Opryland, I grew up in Tennessee most of my life. So Opryland closed when I was 14, been there plenty of times. It's definitely like going down memory lanes. The city has grown so much since then. There's a lot of places that were there now that are no longer open. So it's definitely like going into a time machine. Outside of that, you definitely have to give Brandon Vestal his credit for this documentary. So many hardships to get it made. Documentaries are hard to make anyway. But on top of that, unfortunately, most documentaries focus a lot on archival footage, archival videos. We had a horrible flood in 2010. Unfortunately, a lot of that footage was lost, so he couldn't even use that for the documentary. There is some light at the end of the tunnel with that. I'll speak about that a little bit later. But Opryland theme park was made to complement the Grand Ole Opry, which was made in 1974. The Ryman Auditorium, another historic music venue, was having some issues at the time. There were some repair issues going on and a lot of crime, unfortunately. And this wasn't just happening in Nashville. A lot of cities, Los Angeles, California, Manhattan, New York, Detroit, Michigan. A lot of not only music venues, but theaters were inside the city. And around that time, economically, people started moving outside of the city. So a lot of jobs and resources were taken away. So a lot of these venues suffered. Of course, the crime elements there, prostitution, substance abuse, and everything that goes along with that, unfortunately. Because remember, these are the days where you stood in line to buy a ticket, and there's so many horror stories. You stand in line to buy a ticket and you're getting booked for your wallet or your purse. So that element is too much of a liability for your customers as well as your artists. Say, hey, nobody wants to come down here and deal with the crime. So that became an issue. And going along with that, just historically, like with movies, that's why in the 70s, I'll say the 70s is definitely one of the best decades in movie history, but there wasn't a lot of big box office hits really until Jaws came later on. In the early 70s, there might have been a couple more, but other than really The Exorcist and The Godfather, not too many big box office hits at that time. That's where a lot of the martial arts, films took over, and the blaxploitation movies really help kind of save the industry. Starting off with, really Melvin Van Peebles' Sweetback. That movie was made on like $150,000 budget and it made $15 million. And then Shaft, MGM was in the red. MGM were on the verge of bankruptcy. Shaft came on a $500,000 budget, made $15 million. So these are things that kept people going to the theaters until Jaws came and they were kind of back on their feet. But just kind of dropping a little quarter in the meter there. But outside of that, when Opryland was made, it took off. And by 77, it became Nashville's most popular tourist attraction. They were attracting 12 million customers a year. And as a result, they were doing so well, they were able to make the Opryland Hotel adjacent to Opryland theme park. So now you got, hey, people want to go to a nice hotel in general, or like, hey, we can go to the hotel and then go to Opryland tomorrow for a couple of days and see everything and do everything there. So it worked hand in hand, very successful. They called Opryland the show park, and that's what made it unique. Outside of the Grand Ole Opry, which was close, they had real performers, dancers, singers that were performing throughout the day at Opryland. And that's what made it unique from everybody else. So you would go through the park, you would see the shows, and it was intense. You can tell that they really worked hard on their craft. And they talked about that, how These performers went through weeks and months of training before they hit that stage. It was serious. And they brought a lot of because Opryland only had about 6 roller coasters. So, this is what made them stand out. But they brought a lot of the performers but the performers back, and they talked about how, the camaraderie they had with their colleagues and how fun it was. But they talked about how hard they worked. Hey, rehearsals were no joke. We ran it back till we got it perfect. And it got so good, the performance got so good that I can't remember, it was one of the managers or owners had went to New York. I can't remember if he just went there for vacation or do research, but he actually looked at 10 different Broadway shows. And out of 10 different Broadway shows, every last one of the performers had come through the Ryman at some point. They had performed at the Ryman at some point, saying that, hey, this is a testing ground. If I can handle this Ryman rehearsals, that I can take it to New York, and they were very successful with that. Also, became so popular that they had a dancing show a dancing show adjacent to Opryland that went along with it. So they were able to cover at both angles, but that's what made it unique, was the performers that they had there. The documentary also goes into why Opryland closed. There's a few deciding factors. One thing was they started to have competition, because Opryland was kind of all we had as a theme park in Tennessee. But then later on, Dollywood came, and then Kentucky Kingdom came. So people that might be closer to those areas that might drive all the way to Nashville can go to those places. And so now you have competition. Outside of that, Opryland was kind of built on somewhat of a smaller structure. So it's hard to expand, the theme park. And then you're surrounded by water, so that makes things more difficult. And the big thing that happened is in 1997, Bud Wendell retired. He was the Gaylord CEO. He retired. So now, just from a business standpoint, it's like, hey, this is a theme park. So now, we have a business that only makes money for 3-4 months or so out of the year. You're not going to have, roller coaster rides when it's 20 degrees outside. So, they were thinking, the Gaylord Entertainment was thinking, hey, we want a business that can work for us all year round, just from a profit standpoint. So they decided, unfortunately, to demolish it, for business reasons. And then in 2000, they replaced it with Opry Mills Mall, which is still there today. All right, I was able to watch this amazing documentary at Belcourt Theater on New Year's Eve. Brandon Vestal was actually in the house promoting the documentary. He gave us some good news. He said actually that a lot of archival footage was lost in the flood. But he went to the local news, and they have a whole bunch of videos and archival footage, and they told him, hey, use what you want. And then he put a call out to the fans to send in all your photos and videos, of Opryland when you went there. So he's trying to expand this and make it further and take it further, even though it's in limited release. So that's good news to hear. That's some light at the end of the tunnel. Outside of that, another aspect of this documentary that was very important, that I really enjoyed, and that was just honest, was the transparency of it. Now, even though we miss Opryland, there's nothing like it, and we have a heart for it, they did have people in there explain that, hey, it is a business at the end of the day. It's easy for a lot of people to point fingers, but they don't have to run the business of it. Keep in mind, this is a theme park that runs, 3 or 4 months or so out the year. You still have operating expenses. You still have to keep the roller coasters and everything operated during off season. You have to hire new people every single season, because it's only open for 3-4 months or so. So all these things take into place, and then when you have corporate people that get involved, not that it's necessarily malicious, but they're just looking at it as profit, as a business. And hey, I'd rather have something that can make money all year round. And he brought up a good example. He said it's almost like a relative passing away and leaving their child or family member of the house. Now, not that you're trying to be evil or not, but they don't have an attached to the house like you do. They're just looking at it as another piece of property, and which might be good initially, but now you're having to pay for another house, property taxes, repairs. You're gonna have to pay for it, especially if you might live out of state or outside the city. You want to say, hey, this is too much a hassle for me. I'd rather just cash out. So, and that's just, like I said, at the end of the day, it is a business at the end of the day. So they give you that. They compare and contrast and just give you the honesty of it. So I really appreciated that. All right, so that's it. Let's say Opryland USA, A Circle Broken. Amazing documentary. Definitely check it out. It's in limited release, so I'm not sure Like I said, Brandon is going around. He is expanding it. Looks like he's making it bigger and better. So it might come back out in theaters or physical release. I'm not sure, but if it's in your area, definitely check it out if you like. If you want to know about the history of Opryland, and definitely if you all have any comments or questions about this documentary, definitely leave them down at the bottom. Y'all take care. Hope you enjoyed the video. Adios.